Welcome to a very special edition of Powerful Women Today. Women live longer, so often control all the family, caregiving, the legacy. They frequently inherit the responsibility of managing the family assets. So, on this International Women's Day, we have our very special guest, Marlenne Doss, who is an attorney that specializes on wills and states. So, welcome, Marlenne.
Thank you, Carolina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank
Happy
you.
Women's Day, International Women's Day.
Yes, you know what? I love it because it's a great month and it's also spring.
Yes.
It's like it awakens the spring. International Women's Day. So protecting our legacy, like women must lead the state legacy planning conversation. That is, I think you and I have come to the realization that we're not beating around the bush, we're being blunt about it. It is really up to women to put this together. So let's talk about why the conversation matters, especially for women. What's your
As
thought on that?
as you said, women do, if they're in relationships or otherwise, they live longer. And what I've seen time and time again is they often don't know what's happening in their own homes, and they don't have an understanding of things, of how finances are being managed, where everything lives. That's a frequent thing, but it's really living longer and making sure that you are prepared and have adequate funds and everything else in place to make sure that as we age well. We can age in place if we wanted to, and just that our loved ones and ourselves are protected.
Yeah. And you know what? As you said, sometimes, and funny enough, Powerful Women Today is an organization that is not a feminist organization. We're really into empowerment and respecting what's right for each person, which is part of the reason why we're not a feminist organization, because that follows a specific mandate. We really, really champion what's right for you. And what I love what you just said is that many women, and I was one like it, not too long ago, that you really do not know or understand all of the financial instruments that are affecting your life, right? And somehow, when it comes to negotiating mortgages and leases and things like that, we just pass it on to our partner. But we may end up being in charge of it, whether it's by chance or choice, that you are the person really sometimes helping administer three generations. You're looking after your parents, you're looking after your family, and you're setting up the legacy for your kids.
Yes.
So, what is specifically for International Women's Day, and really March is Women's 12 months of the year, women's months. But anyways, March being the one that we observe. Tell me, what are three fundamental documents that a woman must have as part of their legacy and estate planning?
Yes. Well, as you said, women are often the heads of a household by choice or not. What we're seeing is there's a shift in the women's roles in their families. More females are running businesses, so they're entrepreneurs. There's different forms of families. There's blended families, there's single moms, there's, all kinds of different dynamics of families.
Single dads.
And single dads, yes. So,
Yeah.
yes. So for everybody, I would say the basic things that they need to have is their wills, whether it's one will for their personal stuff as well as an additional one to cover their businesses. And the two powers of attorneys. There's one for personal care and there's one to manage your property, which is basically everything. It's not just real estate. The title sometimes gets confused, but so your wills and your powers of attorneys for personal care and your property are key documents to have in place.
Yeah, when we talk about estate planning, people often think, "Hey, I don't have enough money. Like this is just for the rich." and B is only after you're no longer here. But what you just mentioned, the power of attorneys, those are the most important documents because that's really helping you every single day to manage things that you're not planning for, right?
Right.
Especially if you're a single parent. I mean, you could be talking about who's able to pick up your kids should, God forbid, something happen to you during the day and you end up in the hospital,
Yes,
right? Like they're not far-fetched scenarios that we're talking about. They're like everyday occurrences.
correct. Yes. And they're so cost effective to put in place when they're done right. But the
Mhm.
importance of them, as you said, is so high. Sometimes I will tell people, like, even if you, at least there's a law that dictates what happens if you don't have a will and who's going to become your beneficiaries, whether you like it or not, and who can
Mhm.
be appointed as your trustees, whether you agree with it or not. But at least there's a law that dictates that. When it comes to your property while you're alive, without having the power of attorney for property, nobody can really step in to pay your bills, to refinance, to renew your mortgages, do all of those things, to go to the bank and manage your assets or your investments, etc.
And your
So
mortgage,
it's
if you happen to fall ill, in again, these are unplanned circumstances. You talk about insurance. Everybody understands insurance. This is part of your contingency plan should something unexpected happen.
correct. And I say, setting up your estate plan, I mean, people don't even understand what that means. What is an estate? So estate is really everything that you're building now, but also everything that you're going to leave behind afterwards, right? And the powers of attorneys, yes, for personal care, it's only with healthcare decisions that you can't handle for yourself. But what if you are traveling to the Middle East or something right now and you can't get back and your stuff still needs to be taken care of, and you
Correct.
don't have that power of attorney?
It doesn't have to be a hospital scenario. You're right. You could, and it's not just like what's happening in the Middle East, which of
Yes,
course
anyway,
is horrifying, but it could be a weather related, you're on vacation or something occurs and you're trapped,
and it could
right?
be your business also. Your business has a need and you're not in the country and somebody needs to go deal with the banking. But if they are not appointed as your powers of attorney for property, that's going to be difficult to do. Um, Anyways, the other option, if you don't have it there, is that you have to go through a court application to become the guardian of property, which is very
At
costly,
the
takes
time
a
in
long,
those urgent
takes a long
circumstances.
time, and exactly, and you can't use it when there's something urgent that comes up. So it's a
Yeah,
really important document to have in place.
absolutely. And we're speaking of the unexpected, right? The which is really most of the time what catches you off guard, right?
Yes,
You worry about all the scenarios, and the one that actually gets you is the one that you hadn't thought of. But
correct.
there are some real life scenarios that are game changers. There is, I'm just looking here, is second marriages, blended families, supporting elderly parents. Like if one of your parents, unfortunately passes on, now you got one single parent that you may need to step in and take care of, right? And also protecting businesses and professional practices, and even crypto, right? Like we live in a world now of like intellectual property and cryptocurrency and all these abstract assets that we sometimes forget that they're assets.
Yes. And they actually get lost if you don't plan for those things properly. The cryptocurrency and all the digital assets really need their own particular planning and awareness to make sure that they're not lost if something
That's
does
right.
happen. Mhm.
For sure. What state conflicts do you see most often?
Oh, so one that's come up more frequently than not is naming trustees that don't get along. So even with parents, like a lot of them think, oh, I love all my children. I don't want them to feel like I'm, differentiating between them or choosing one over the other. So they name all of them. And then they don't update their documents. And when the time comes and they've passed, some of these siblings have had falling outs and they're not getting along or they disagree on how one person is managing things or whatever it is. So having executors and trustees that A, can manage the responsibility because it is a big one, and B, if you're naming more than one that get along, that is key. Without that, what
Yeah.
happens is it leads to litigation. There, you end up in the court system one way or the other, or at best, you're appointing an outside trustee to step into the role and be able to help manage these things. But even getting to that point, they have to agree on things. So,
And you know what? I like, of course, with everything in life, there's pros and cons, right? But I do like the idea of that third party involved. Usually it's your lawyer or,
no,
somebody.
it's not necessarily the lawyer. There are trust companies
Okay.
that also step into these roles, and they
Okay.
take the fees for managing it. So it's not for everybody. It depends on the value of your estate. Um,
Okay.
Not only your value of your estate, but also if you don't have somebody. Like sometimes people don't have somebody else. They don't have next of kin, but they still have an estate that will need to be managed or distributed at some point. So
I was thinking of one particular scenario, and again, you watch, right? And learn and think, okay, what what if that happened to me, right?
yeah.
So there's this family that the mother is a little bit elder, right? And there's two adult kids, and the mom has some medical issues, right? So some to do with arthritis and some like chronic illnesses. So the doctor recommended some CBD product, right? That is the most efficient given her age and everything else that's going on. So the daughter was like, sure, whatever is going to make mom comfortable, in her latter years, right? We're speaking of an 80 something year old lady. And the son was like adamantly like, no, no, we're not getting mom high, right? Which CBD product does not do. But anyways, leaving that aside, right? So here's a perfect example on who's looking after this lady's best interest, right?
Who understands what she would want? That's
Yes,
that's where you
exactly.
start, right? Who knows your wishes and will be willing to implement them whether they agree with them or not.
So in a scenario like that, would one of those power of attorneys would be the one to guide this family through? Or do you want to, if you want to live in a home or you don't, or you know what I mean, like what, how would that, given that's a real case scenario every single day, how could that be mitigated by having the proper structure?
So if you have your powers of attorneys in place, you're choosing who's going to be making those decisions on your behalf.
Mhm.
And you can prioritize the people. So if you feel like your daughter, for instance, in this situation,
Understands your, or is understands your values.
yes, would be more in line with your wishes, then maybe you name your daughter first and you say, okay, but if she's not available or she's not around or she also has issues or passes away before me, then my backup is my son, who
Mhm.
I know will still make decisions for my best interest, but maybe not so much in line, whatever it is, right? But if you don't have those things in place and you're not married, then it is your children, all of them, that are next in line to make the healthcare decisions for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll become sticky if they are meeting with the health practitioners, the doctors, etc., that are asking for directions that are, and they can't come to an agreement. It's going to be a problem. It's going to delay things. And if she does need the treatments and, if she needs something,
If that is the best treatment,
right.
right?
So
Like,
no, what I'm saying is if there's something that needs to be decided on and they can't agree to it, then chances are you, or if it's me that's in the hospital, I may be suffering unnecessarily until an agreement can be reached, right? But if I've already had these conversations and my children know my openness to different treatments and that my priority is comfort and those things, and I've chosen the person who maybe has the better medical background, or maybe has a better understanding, or is not so emotional about those decisions, right? Um, they're probably going to be best to make those decisions. Doesn't mean they can't take input from other family members. You do want to make sure that you're conserving those relationships as much as possible. But if somebody needs to take the lead on these decisions, that you have named the person that, okay, here's the document. I am actually the power of attorney for personal care here. And I know we're not seeing eye to eye, but this is the decision that I'm making. And they
Wow.
will implement it.
This is, what I love about even just the process of
Mhm.
going through discovery and your estate planning and all of that is that you are setting up the opportunity to have conversations that most of us don't have, right? And sometimes it's cultural avoidance, but other times they just don't come up. We're so busy,
Yes.
living life and keeping the wheels turning that who's got time to even think about it,
Yes.
right? And then, or you may end up making decisions in haste
Correct.
because you're in the middle of the urgent situation that
Mhm. Yeah.
may not, it's not the right time to to be making such decisions.
There's no doubt that setting up an estate plan requires intentionality. It's something that's so easy to put on the back burner and think we always have more time. I actually just had a conversation with somebody this morning about this, about his parents that are elderly, and he's having to step into the role. And, we're just having some conversations about you need to talk to them about ABC and understand where their assets are, find out their passwords, find out these things, because if
Yes.
something were to happen, you're going to be flying blind. And he was actually stressed out about the prospect of it. And I said, just go start the conversations with them now, so that if and when, it's really a matter of when, something. Either they're going to become ill or will become ill, or best case scenario, we will pass at some point, and somebody else is going to have to step in, right? So if we keep these things on the back burner, it may not impact us tax wise and financially while we're alive. It likely will. But if it does not, then it's the people that we're saying that we love, that we're
Yeah.
going to be leaving behind, right? They're the ones that are going to be burdened. So, and that's why I feel like,
And you know what? That those conversations, when it comes to money, and I have that portion I have lived firsthand.
yes,
They put wedges in families that we're still trying to kind of work through,
right.
and
Yes,
in really there are situations where one sibling was respecting the parents' wishes, and the wishes were a little unorthodox, right? So the other siblings just they were not in agreement, or they saw it as, they were just not in agreement.
yes,
So is extremely difficult under the best circumstances, right? And we all get along, and this was just like a difference of ideology and belief system.
mhm,
Imagine what would happen if you're a blended family or you're not getting along to begin with,
yes. And I've seen those as
right?
well. And it's challenging. It's challenging. If things aren't written out correctly,
Mhm.
you are really setting up your family for failure.
And
It's
updating it. It's not a set
nothing.
it and
It's
forget
100%.
it. It is, it is something that you need to revisit. And
Yes,
just like you check your fire alarms, every time you change the clock, it needs to be something that you build into your, family maintenance,
yes.
right? That you have these continuous conversations.
Yes, because the other thing that I've seen more frequently is unequal distributions that are happening unintentionally, especially if one parent gifts something to one child, has bought them a home, for instance, or helped with their down payment, and then they do not have the opportunity to do the same for the other children. So
Yeah.
if there isn't a will that accounts for this and something happens to them, then it resulted in an unequal distribution of the estate. And of course, the other two children did not find that fair, but there wasn't anything that they could really do to enforce it. If that first child agreed and wanted to, deal with an unequal distribution of the rest to balance things out, then great. But sometimes that's no,
And the subject
that's
of
not the case.
fairness, the subject of fairness, you and I are going to have to like come back and present some real case scenarios, because when we speak of in generalities, like the abstract, right?
Yeah.
But once you describe it, all of us know someone in those circumstances,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So what's fair is fair. So what is something women, especially in March, can do to really take the leadership in keeping their family together now and when they're no longer able to? What can
Yes.
they do in March?
Yes, I think the most immediate things is to take some action. Stop putting it on the back burner and stop burying your heads in the sand, which as women we tend to do. And not necessarily intentionally. A lot of the times, as you said, it's because we're busy with all the day-to-day things that are on our plates, right?
How can someone begin a conversation with you? Because you're trusted. You're our official in-house, legal counsel when it comes to that.
Yes.
How can someone begin to have this conversation with you specifically?
So they can call our office, and they can email us. They can even go online and fill out our intake form, and that'll get us in touch with them. And then
Okay.
we would just start the conversation with, what is your family like? What do you have? Who's in your family? What assets do you own? And then we figure out what you need. So
Okay.
once we determine what's needed, and then we just start the implementation process. But yeah, it's just
Brilliant.
start. Just reach out, and get it started. And I think a lot of people are hesitant because they think it's going to be an overwhelming process, or, as
It
you said,
is.
costly, and it's
If
not.
it were, I would tell you. You still
Yeah.
have to do it, but I would be
Yes.
honest with you and tell you this is what you need to prepare, right? Like it's all about onboarding. It's no such thing as difficulty. It's just really understanding what it takes, right?
Yes.
But this is not a difficult project, especially with Marlenne. So
Yeah.
we invite everyone to connect with her. I know Marlene's going to be speaking at some of our upcoming events. And, she's in our magazines, she's in our podcast, she's like everywhere that PWT Global and Powerful Women Today are making a difference in the world. Marlenne is there with us. So thank you, everyone. And we wish you have a fabulous March and a fabulous International Women's Day and International Women's Month. So until next time, thank you so much.